Well, here's the tip, and eerily enough, it's all about tapered mono leaders and how to actually connect them to your line. In fact, you can take this advice for the attachment of any leader. Now, just imagine that the spool of soft steel here is my main line. It's 12 pounds diameter, and I've chosen a 12 pounds tapered leader. So the two diameters match perfectly. I'm going to start off by tying a small overhand loop in my main line. Very simple granny knot, and I haven't even closed it. This is the end of the tapered mono leader. As you can see, it's the same diameter as the soft steel. I'm going through the loop. Now I'm going to draw through probably about 6 inches of the leader. Next, I'm going to twist that leader up the line. 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns, 7 turns, 8 turns, 9 turns, 10 turns. So I've made 10 twists up the line. And now I'm going to twist back down 6 turns. So I've already made 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns. You can see I'm going back over the twists I've already made, except for this time I'm coming down instead of going up, and I've made 6 turns back down the line. So I've gone up 10, I've come down 6, and now I'm going to pass the end of the tapered leader back through the loop. Now, just to summarise, I've formed an overhand loop in the main line, and I've passed the tag end of the tapered mono leader through it, twisted up the line 10 times and back down 6, and then passed it back through the loop. Now for the tricky bit. What I've got to do is start to close up the little loop like this by just pulling on this tag so that it's not quite closed, but it's a very small loop now. And then I'm going to moisten the knot. You should always moisten your knots before you tighten them. And then I'm going to draw on the main line to start to close the knot up. Now this is the tricky bit, because what you have to do is you have to keep tweaking the 2 little tag ends of the loop and of the leader, and you just keep tightening them up to take up any slack. Keep pulling, keep moistening, keep tweaking the tag ends, and then pull on the main line to close the whole thing up. What you end up with is a very, very neat knot. It's tapered, so it actually flies through your rod rings very, very easily. And if any of you are thinking, well, is that a strong connection? Let me tell you, I've used this particular knot to join together all sorts of materials when I've been fishing, and I've even used this knot to land tarpon in the Florida Keys over 140 pounds. So that's how good it is. This knot, if it's properly tied, will not let you down. So all I need to do now is to trim this knot off, and I can do that with this pair of nail clippers which I nicked from Max's box earlier on. Don't mention it to him and I might get away with pocketing them. And I clip off very, very close to the knot itself. You can trim this really close, and if you want to, you can actually put a bit of glue around that knot just to smooth off any rough edges. But look how neat it is. Perfect knot, perfect barrel wraps, passes through the leader nicely, and it's very, very strong. You won't do any better than that. Well, that's a great knot actually. I've even impressed myself there. I don't normally do them that good, you know. And just so that you don't forget, you can actually use the same knot to connect mono to braid. It's a bell. One of the things you can't stop carp anglers doing is playing with their rigs. It's been going on ever since carp fishing started, and it shows no sign at all of slowing down. And one of the areas where the greatest advances have been made is in lead attachment systems or safety systems. Before I go on to show you some of the new stuff I've got littered around on this table here, I'm just going to refresh your memory as to the Fox Combiled system, because it's something that we spoke about in the Fox Guide to Advanced Carp Fishing, and we still get a lot of letters about it. Basically, the concept is that you only need to carry one set of leads, and you can change those leads in terms of their size and also between inline and pendulum or conventional style leads. I'm just going to show you how that works now. This system works with all of the Fox combi leads, and basically you need a kit of parts. You can rig the leads up either inline like this, or by using one of these converters you can change it to pendulum style very quickly, and it's actually quite easy to do. And the way you do that is literally just pop off the top rubber from the lead and push out the inner sleeve. So basically the lead is now a hollow shell. And let me just put those back on the table and show you that to change it over to a pendulum style lead, all you need to do is take the converter and drop it. It's best to do this upside down inside the lead. And can you see this little fin here? Well, that is to locate the converter in the slot in the lead. And when it's pushed in flush like that, if you turn it upside down, hey presto, you've got a traditional style bomb. And it really is that simple. Now this system is also very safe, because nothing in terms of the rig that you set up with it is actually fixed, and I'll show you that now. Here's one of the leads set up inline style. And you can see that the swivel is actually located inside a rubber sleeve. Now that rubber is very important because it grips the swivel quite firmly, but it allows it to pull out under moderate pressure. And that's very important, because if you were to crack your rig off and leave it on the lake bed, a carp comes along, he picks up your bait, the last thing you want is for him to tow that lead around. So basically, under moderate pressure, that swivel will pull out and it will free the carp up. The same applies, of course, if you lose the rig during the course of the fight. So you're not going to tether a carp up. And that particular point is the driving force behind a lot of the modern attachment systems and safety systems that are being developed. And I've got some great examples of it down here. And I'm going to go on to describe some of those in a moment, but before I do, we also get lots of letters about the combi lead system shapes. In other words, which shape of lead should I use for the sort of fishing I'm doing? So I've got them here, and I'm just going to give you a little refresher. Now, I mentioned early on that the weight of lead you use should really be matched to two things. First of all, the optimum casting distance for your rod, but also the heavier the lead, the greater the bolt effect will be when a carp picks up your bait and tries to move away with it. So I'm not going to get into weight too much here. Suffice to say that some leads, in terms of their shape, are more inclined to create a bolt effect than others, and this is a classic example. Now this is the flat pear bomb. It's particularly effective when it's fished inline, and what's good about it is that it's got a very low centre of gravity because it's flat. Lots of the weight is loaded towards the rig end, and you can also see, because it's flat-sided, it'll sit on slopes and bars. I would tend to fish that close to medium range and in line. Now the next lead along is the dumpy tri-bomb. Now the dumpy tri-bomb I think is best fished pendulum style, but you can rig it up in line. It's good for sort of medium range fishing and ideally suited to gravel bars and slopes again, because it's got relatively flat sides, but it has got a nice bomb style shape, so it does achieve a good bolt effect. And then finally we've got the distance torpedo. Now you can see by the shape of this lead that it really is geared up for distance work. I like to fish it in line, but you can fish it pendulum style. The weight is concentrated towards the nose of the lead, which makes it fly very accurately. It's quite streamlined, but interestingly, again, it's flat-sided. So if you're fishing it on bars and slopes, it will actually sit there, and it's also got a low centre of gravity again, which enhances the bolt effect. And this business about low centre of gravity is actually quite important. If the lead has got a low centre of gravity, it will achieve a better bolt effect, a better self-hooking effect than a long, elongated lead that pivots around all over the place. Try to avoid leads that pivot, because when they do, you're giving carp a limited amount of almost resistance-free play, and they can use the lead to actually work the hook out of their mouths. Very important on hard fish waters these days. Now what I want to do now is move on to other forms of attachment and safety systems, because there have been a few quite important developments, and I'll show you one of them here. Now all of these leads have been rigged up on Leadcore, But let me just say that the presentations I'm about to show you, or to be more correct, the attachment systems, work equally well with barbuster tube or normal rig tubing. And this one is an absolute beauty. It's a new design of helicopter bead, and it's very, very carp safe. And carp safety is absolutely paramount these days, as we all know. First of all, the performance of the bead itself. Well, as you can see, it's a nice streamlined design, very little risk of tangling. And what I like about it is that this particular swivel here, which is mounted on a ring, not only can it revolve freely, but it's not putting a lot of pressure on the lead core underneath. In the early days of helicopter rigs, one of the biggest problems was the pressure from the swivel actually shearing off the lead core when you were playing a fish. With this particular rig, that's not going to happen. But there's other clever bits about it as well, because if I just show you this top bead and how easily it pulls away, it means that in a situation where you lose your rig, or maybe you crack it off for whatever reason, a reasonable amount of pressure will allow that bead to come free, the top rubber there, and the whole thing can fall off. So it's very, very safe to carp. And I'll show you something else very clever about this system as well. Now, underneath the bottom sleeve, which incidentally pulls off under moderate pressure, you'll see a new type of attachment system. And we call these speed links. They're very, very safe, and they're also very easy when it comes to changing the lead over. Rather than messing around with link swivels, you just simply pop the lead on or off very easily. Now, that means you can change leads quite quickly. There's no way that the lead can come adrift, and it's all sleeved off very nicely in this bottom sleeve. But, and it's a big but, you can see how easily the whole thing comes apart. And that's also something that applies to this setup here, which is also new. Now, in order to demonstrate this to you, I'm going to need the lead off the helicopter rig. So I'm just going to use the speed link to its best advantage by taking this lead off and actually attaching it onto this safety sleeve. Now let me try and show you why this safety sleeve is so good. First of all, as you can see, it's very, very neat. Everything's nice and flush. There's nothing there for the hook length to tangle around. Let's take back the top sleeve, just pop it off, and you can see here there is a tongue of plastic with a little lug located underneath, and that's where your lead goes. So I've just popped the lead on, it sits inside that little recess there, and then you put the top sleeve back on like so. Now that's nice and secure, it's semi-fixed, but most importantly, and this is something you should always check out when you buy this type of safety sleeve, the sleeve itself comes apart very, very easily, and the lead can actually free itself very easily too. But there's more. Let's just replace this and show you that at the front end of the sleeve, the swivel actually pops in and out with a positive click. Now, I don't know whether you can see this, but a little push and it clicks into place and pops out again very easily. So the whole thing can come apart under moderate pressure. The top sleeve can come off, the swivel can free itself from the bottom there, and of course the lead can fall off the lug that it's contained on. So it's a very, very good system. And so too is this one. This new Leadcore safety rig pack has got some really sexy stuff in it, because it's got the new Leadcore and some new safety sleeves. So I'm going to show you those now. The safety sleeve is a really neat bit of kit. Quite a natty little thing really, because basically what you've got is a moulded rubber sleeve, soft touch, and you can fish it either with the swivel of the lead jammed onto it, or, as I've got here, you can use a low resistance ring. Now, as you can see, the sleeve's designed in such a way that it's got lots of little bumps on it, and then one bigger bump at the top end. So if you want to push on one of these low resistance rings, that will sit very neatly right next to what is effectively an anti-tangle bead, and the swivel is located inside the sleeve, and it can pull out again under moderate pressure. as you can see. And because it's rubber, it will grip, but it won't over grip. So it pulls away nice and neatly, so it's safe. It also creates a very nice bolt effect. And you can use the design of this sleeve to achieve different effects. For instance, with this particular ring on, you can see that the whole thing is locked up nice and tight. It'll come away under moderate pressure, but you've got a nice bolt effect there. But you can rig it up a different way as well to achieve a completely different effect. Now, as you can see, I've attached the top eye of the swivel from the lead to the bottom end of the sleeve. And you can see that by its tapered design and all these little lugs, you can achieve different degrees of grip. It will always come free because it's on rubber, it's not on hard plastic, it's not over tight, but you can alter the amount of grip that you achieve simply by pushing the swivel eye further down the sleeve. And the reason that I like to fish them quite a way back sometimes is because fish this way, initially, when the fish picks up the bait, it comes up against the weight of the lead and it pricks itself on the hook. But clever carp have learned to actually use the lead as a pivoting point, as an anchor or a lever to work the hook out. But when you locate that swivel at the back of the safety sleeve, under moderate pressure it pops out and all of a sudden the fish hasn't got an anchoring point anymore. The hook's in, it's pricked itself, but it can't use the lead as a pivoting point. So what you get then is a moment of confusion and then a nice steady run as the fish bolts away in panic. It's a great system, superb safety sleeve, and of course you've got that all-important lead core, and that's what I'm going to finish this section on, because this new lead core really is top dollar. It's got a nice open weave braid which you can actually work with very easily. It splices beautifully. It's got the lead core inner. It's 45-pound breaking strain. It helps to prevent tangles. It lies flat on the bottom, and of course it's got a lovely camouflage finish. So there's lots of advantages to using it. And of course, when you want to attach lead core, if you've got a splice loop in the end, you can actually connect the lead core loop to loop. Now, the way that we actually attach the lead core is using a splice loop on the end, and then it's attached loop to your main line. And we covered this in the Fox Advanced Guide to Carp Fishing, so that tape's well worth picking up just to see that particular section. But for those of you who haven't got a copy or might not put the hands in the pocket to buy one, here's a quick refresher for you now. And this diagram shows not only how to splice lead core, but also how to attach it loop to loop. It's a very reliable and safe system. There are no big knots, so any leads or sleeves can slide across that connection and the whole thing will come apart. So there you have it, a complete guide to safety systems. There's a lot to take in there, so you might want to use the pause and rewind button, and hopefully that diagram will come in useful as well. This is the sort of thing that you really need to go into in depth, because the most important thing about rigs is that they're carp safe. Here's a little tip for you. These quick change pop-up weights are absolutely brilliant for counterbalancing buoyant hook baits like boilies and popped up particles. The best part about them is that you can actually choose the weight that is exactly suited to the hook bait that you're using, and they're very easy to take on and off the line, and they don't damage it either. Now, to put one on the line is relatively simple. Take some of the rubber that's supplied in the pack and trim off about 1.5 inches. Then select the pop-up weight that you want to attach to the line. In this case I'm using a AA, and using the slit in the side of the pop-up weight, place it onto your hook length. And now is the tricky bit. Take the rubber and place it alongside the slit, and what you've got to do is you've got to trap the rubber at one end and stretch it as far as you can so it goes much thinner and pops in to one side of the weight. Then trap the rubber on that side and repeat the operation, stretching it again until it pops inside the weight like that. Now all you have to do, if you want to make it really neat, is taking a pair of trimmers or maybe even some braid blades, just trim off the excess rubber at either end, and the job's a good one. You can slide that weight up and down the hook length and locate it wherever you like.